A big new study out this morning looks at how the Me Too movement is affecting dating culture. 51% of American single men say the movement made them change how they act. That's according to the new study by the dating company Match. 59% of all singles said the Me Too movement is important to them, and nearly half agreed it started a much-needed conversation. Match surveyed more than 5,000 single men and women from age 18 to 99. Really, 99. Helen Fisher is a biological anthropologist and the chief scientific advisor for Match, and she joins us first on CTM. Helen, good to see you. We should point out at the outset that this looked at, it doesn't matter who you are attracted to in this case. People are all right. It's just how do you feel about the Me Too movement? How did it affect you?
Right.
We said 59% of singles find the movement to be important, but when you look at men alone, it's less than half. So is that enough to actually change how we date?
Yeah. Well, 51% of men have changed their behavior. 40% of men have changed their behavior at work, and 33% of men have changed their behavior on a date. And actually, social scientists have been tracking social change for decades, and that's a huge change. I mean, if you get people to stop eating, try to ask people to stop eating sugar or get some more exercise or, drink less or something, very few people really change their behavior. This is a massive social change.
Do we know how their behavior is changing?
Yes, they're being more reserved. They're being more careful. They're trying to make sure that their jokes are appropriate, that they have the right kinds of conversations. And what's so interesting about it for me is that actually, with this Me Too movement, 90% of men would be perfectly happy if a woman asked them for their telephone number. 90% would be perfectly happy if a woman made the first sexual move and had a kiss.
But the women,
women aren't doing it.
The women want both.
The women aren't
ways.
doing it. I was thinking about this last night. I thought, should we reinstate Sadie Hawkins days so that women begin to try and figure out, So it's interesting how in business women are really going for equality, whereas in courtship, they're still playing a much more traditional game than men.
Is it the women playing the traditional game, or is it the men being overly cautious now? I mean, are they overcorrecting? 90% saying they want the woman to make the first move.
The correction is exactly the right word for it. I mean, it's a little like the stock market. There's now a correction. But what's really happening is we're seeing growing equality between the sexes. And in fact, we are shedding actually 10,000 years of our agrarian tradition. I mean, we used to believe a woman's place was in the home, that the man was the head of the household till death do us part. And indeed, we're seeing this massive change towards general equality between the sexes. And the last part to really change is this, but this is a huge social movement that is moving us towards this economic, social, sexual equality between the sexes.
Your study said that 1/3 of young singles say their financial situation has held them back from pursuing love.
Yeah. I study millennials. I'm really impressed by millennials. They're very cautious and they're very ambitious. And
it sounds like they're very practical.
They're very practical. I mean, very different from my generation. I'm a baby boomer. They're marrying much later. I call it slow love. They're spending a lot of time. Yeah, I mean, actually, first they want to be just friends, then they want to move into friends with benefits. You learn a lot between the sheets, right? And then they slowly tell friends and family, and then they slowly move in together, and then they wed. And the later you marry, the more likely you are to remain together. So it's a very interesting, solid, good movement, but they're being very careful. Just like you said, they want to make sure they're financially stable, that their career is in order, before they actually catch feelings.
I love when you say that we are built for love, in your words. 75% of those surveyed said they believe in a lifelong partnership.
Yes, and some, I've done this study with Match for 9 years, and it's a national study. We do not poll the Match members. It's a national representative sample of Americans based on the U.S. Census, and every year I ask that question. And some years as much as 89% of both men and women believe that when you find the right one, you can do it forever. And it's entirely possible in this day and age. The later you marry, the more likely you are to remain married, and that's what the young are doing. They're being very cautious, very practical, as you said.
And they're being optimistic.
And they are optimistic. And they should be, for God's sakes,
There it is.
Interesting that most singles meet through dating apps now. Very interesting. Fascinating study. Helen Fisher, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you.